Hi, Victoria. So nice to see you again. Okay, so I just wanted to start. I know it's been like a week and a half, so I figured we could do a check-in. If you wanted to tell me like how are things going since the last time we talked, and just like how has everything been?
It's going about the same.
About the same.
Yeah. Still kind of feeling unsure about what to do.
Right.
Concerning
Yeah.
so I'm just still kind of in that space mainly.
Right. Yeah, so last time we talked, just to recap, you had told me that your best friend Zach asked you on a date, and you're feeling hesitant about what to do about that because he's very important in your life, and yet you don't want to lose him, right? And so, have you guys been in contact since the last time we spoke?
Yeah, we still hang out, and I think he might be losing patience, but he's still very kind and considerate whenever we get together. So I'm just kind of like trying to maintain the relationship without losing it with my indecisiveness right now.
Okay, so things are pretty status quo. Okay, got it. And how are things going with school, work, and everything with family? Any changes there?
No, not really. It's pretty much been the same. Work is still like not quite as fulfilling, but it's doing a job. So I'm not really looking for anything different at the moment. But yeah, everything else feels the same-ish.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Is there anything else you want to bring up? Anything new since last time, or like any certain triggers?
Trigger how? What do you mean?
Stress, something that's like really been on your mind. Anything maybe related to Zach or unrelated.
Nothing's really changed. So nothing new to report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that can be good. Sometimes things staying the same is a good thing. Okay, so I thought something we could do is I have just like a little quiz, and I think that sometimes with people, like, we might have thoughts, but we don't always know like how to analyze them ourselves. So I figured you could do these like questions. Some of them might apply, some might not. And these might be ways that you can think about the feelings you have with Zach, or like ways he makes you feel, and then afterwards we could discuss a little bit. So this is for you. It's good luck though.
I didn't want to knock it off, but I walked down the stairs and everything, and it's clinging. Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of thinking.
Yeah.
Because it is nice to talk. Holding this in for years, so that piece of it was really, really nice.
So I have a little bit of my paper just
But I don't have time.
So how did you feel during that?
Very emotional last few weeks.
There's a lot of sense that you haven't talked about something in 2 years. It's been big, like your mind at your time, and now you're finally opening up about it. It's gonna be probably some mixed feelings. Was that kind of the point?
Yeah, I think so, because I think that a lot of times when people think of
I know that last time in your session, you said
just
you like
focusing
to
on
look
breath,
at
but I
these
think
voices
part of
in
it
your
too
head and
could
how
be our
you're
senses.
sensitive.
Sometimes,
Those and
for me, just focusing on
and I
breath
do
is
definitely want to get to that, but
So,
first, I know that another theme that came up was talking about how you want things to go back to how they were before these past 2 years or 3 years. And in order to figure out how to get in the direction that you're moving forward and
even if it's just for a few seconds,
I was wondering if you if I asked more questions about how
you're feeling.
yeah.
No guarantee it's gonna bring, you know.
Oh, yep. Okay. Thank you so much. All right, so let's see. All right, so I'm just gonna look at this, so we can talk about some strengths and some weaknesses.
We met in high school. Dated.
I guess, so last time.
She went away to college.
things I had
My jobs is I went to college for mom.
So for everyone that comes in, we ask.
Outdoor hands-on jobs.
Yeah.
Work is like
Anyone that knows that
landscape, lawns and whatnot. Just to make ends meet. Which he enjoyed it.
Okay, great. So, all right. So to review, so he's really supportive of you. These are strengths. He encourages you to try new things. He listens to you, and he's very understanding. So he seems to have the character traits of support, compassion, and empathy, and these are good things. One thing I marked is that you wrote that he's not very liked by your friends.
Oh, I thought I put.
Oh, you
no.
meant to put.
Well, it says,
He does. Is not very
Is
well
not
liked.
very liked by my friends, so no.
Ah, got it. So he is like, got it. It's a double negative. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay, and then everything else that I think could be perceived as negative. So he doesn't call you all the time, doesn't accuse you of things that could be negative. His moods are stable. He doesn't seem to make you feel any sort of negative way. Nothing violent, and he doesn't seem to put any pressures on you. So I guess since this is all pretty positive, is there anything like that you can think of that is negative? Because I know you're hesitant. Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit more about
I guess I just kind of always viewed him as a friend.
Right.
And so the support through friendship is really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm hesitant because I'm weary to lose that
Yeah.
support that he's been a really good source of.
Right.
Yeah. So that's like a major thing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, no, not really.
Right. So it's like, on paper, he's doing all the right things, but because he's doing all the right things, it like might bring him closer to you, and therefore make the decision and to the possibility of losing him harder. Okay, I understand that. And I think last time we talked about, you said you have a mentor. So is there anyone else you kind of discussed these like pluses and minuses with, or is it kind of been something you've internalized?
I mean, my other really close friend, her name is Chio.
Mm.
And I talked to her about just about everything. She understands where my hesitation is coming from, so she doesn't push either way. She just is there. She
Right.
thinks I should at least go on a date with Zach.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a lot of anxiety around it.
Sure. Okay. Okay, well, this is helpful. Okay, so I thought one other thing we could do is like a little bit of role playing. So sometimes I think also like I'm not there, so I don't know exactly how Zach speaks to you, but I think there are different outcomes of how this could go with Zach. And so I figure what we could do is I kind of wrote out like 3 ways that it could go. And then afterwards, I'm going to have us think, I want you to write down like, so what would be like your initial thought? Like after I said it, like what would be the way you would react? And then if you could react in a way that like, if you could think about it, how would you react in a more rational way? So here are the 3 things. Victoria, I realized you mean a lot to me, more than friends. Would you go on a date with me? Second, he could say, Victoria, you seem really hesitant about us being more than friends. Is there something I'm doing wrong? Or he might say, Victoria, I feel upset because you haven't given me a chance and I really think it's just going to ruin our relationship. So, this is a sheet. If you want to think about like your thoughts, your feelings, and like as soon as I kind of say those statements, like what comes to you. Yeah. That is impressive that it stayed on you.
I know.
Like, I really like you.
So what was the first thing?
Sure. So the first one was all right. So the first one was Victoria. I realize you mean a lot to me. Like I think we should be more than friends. Would you go on a date with me?
No. Yeah, she was very much like, she worked a lot already.
Okay, so I'm going to do the next one. So, Victoria, you seem hesitant about us being more than friends. You can Randy if you want. Is there something I'm doing wrong?
But yeah, but yeah, it's not. Yeah.
So you just go with you as your dog, but is there anything else outside that you enjoy, or is that basically outside activity that you
I mean, I like going for walks and nothing specific.
Great. And then the third situation. Victoria, I feel upset because you just really haven't given me a chance, and I feel like now our relationship could and friendship could be ruined.
like that TV or movies could be a way to have a release of
Yeah. Yeah.
I know something else you mentioned last time was that you do some pressure about the provider role and not living up to those standards. And I just wanted to ask you to expand a little bit more on what
There's this
you feel the provider role
assessment that kind of measures different symptoms. And then we can either do it together, or if it's easier, you can take it and just kind of go through it. But it kind of touches on a lot of different scenarios just to see like where you're falling on those. You be graded like not at all.
Am I supposed to do the alternative thought?
We could do that one together, yeah. So let's go over like what your initial thoughts are. Yeah, great. So the first one was probably a good situation where he just kind of asked you out. So your initial thought is you should say yes, and that's okay. The second situation, he's questioning if he's doing something wrong and putting the blame on himself, and you're thinking, no, it's not you, like because you kind of think it's you, okay. And the third situation, he's saying that this could really just ruin our relationship and we might not be friends again. How dare you? Okay. Feelings, so guilt, shame, fear, anger, frustration. Seems like they're all kind of like anxiety related. And behaviors. Okay, so the first one is kind of how you're feeling right now. So he asked you out and you shut down. Closed off. Second, explaining I just need time. When he's trying to ask you if he's doing something wrong. So you're putting the blame off of him and onto you. Okay? And the third one, when he's saying that your friendship could be over, your behavior is that you're pushing him away. You feel like it's you.
Well, if he's gonna treat me like that or tell me,
Sure.
trying to give me like an ultimatum when I'm just not comfortable with that right now, then
Yeah. He's also.
don't feel like the relationship is the priority or like the well-being of our relationship.
Yep, understand that. Okay, great. So your alternative thought would be like, if you could think this through, like maybe if now that you're interpreting the situation, like if you could think about it in a different way. Is there a different way? Because I know like you could think about it maybe with pros and cons or thinking about different outcomes or ways it could go. Is there anything you would change?
We'll probably be able to just explain that there's good reasons why I'm a little hesitant, and when I'm comfortable with that, then we'll have that conversation.
Right.
With the first one, same with the second. It's just really some things he doesn't know yet, and I just am not at a place where I can talk to him about that.
Okay, so you don't see the guilt, fear, any of that going away?
Not until I can talk to him about that. And I
Right.
haven't really figured out how to accept what is kind of influencing the hesitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope my water is
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think that filling that out was anything for you?
It was okay. It was just kind of like we mentioned. It's sometimes hard to
Okay, cool. Great, okay, this is really helpful. Thank you, Victoria. Okay, so I know you came in to talk about this issue of dating, and that it seems like the relationship hasn't been great for you in a while, and I want to get back to that, but I just want to maybe talk about a few things and shift to some questions that we addressed in the last session. So last time you talked about a diagnosis. Do you feel comfortable talking about that this time?
Yeah, I was wondering, you know,
Yeah.
many times I have to mention that. I was diagnosed, or I contracted HIV from very manipulative and destructive my last partner. And I just don't really even know how I got here.
Sure. And are there people in your life who you've talked to about this?
She knows.
Okay.
That's why she understands my hesitation.
Yeah.
Because I don't really even know how to start that conversation with him.
Right. Of course. And when did you learn about this diagnosis?
Probably 2 weeks before Zach asked me out. So,
Okay.
like a little over a month ago.
Sure. And if you didn't have this diagnosis, do you feel like your thoughts about him asking you out would be much different?
Probably.
Okay, so
Really
this
give
is...
it that much thought.
Yeah, okay, so this is a big factor for you. Okay. So I guess when you think about that conversation, what makes you most nervous?
Well, it's contracted through like physical intimacy, and if he's asking me on a date, then that means that he has interest in that at some point, and that would be a huge obstacle for me if I thought I was interested in somebody.
Right.
Because I mean, like, basically would be signing up to be exposed to that frequently, and there's no way I can foresee somebody not contracting that. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so have you thought about just being honest with him, and then based off how he reacts, like having your decision based off that?
I'm still reeling in my own way, and I don't really know that I have the space to really take another disappointment.
Yeah. Well, I just want to acknowledge that what you're going through seems really difficult, and I totally understand why this has made everything to process more difficult as well. That is totally understandable. How about your family? Are they involved in this?
It's just such a recent diagnosis. I'm not really sure that I want to tell them until I know how I'm going to go about it.
Sure.
I don't really feel that it concerns them, honestly.
Right.
Not until I really understand what it means for me moving forward. And I mean, I try to make as little contact with my mother as possible, and I don't really see my father much, so it's not really like it's come up.
Right. I remember, so last time we talked about how your mom is really strong, and she has a lot of presence in your life, but sometimes communication can be difficult. And your dad is someone who hasn't been super involved in your life for a very long time. Are there any previous relationships, such as boyfriends you've had in the past, or like in the close recently?
Have I had anyone?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But why?
Is like, what do they say? Is that a positive thing for you? Is there any triggers from that? Like, is there any, I guess, relationships recently that are also playing into the way you're feeling, aside from what you're going through?
Well, the one who gave me this was just a really,
What do you mean by connection?
I don't know if it's narcissism or really self-centered and just selfish, but he must have got it when he was cheating on me. He cheated on me a lot. It's been a while since I dated somebody because I wanted to make sure I was okay.
Right.
And I would say I'm still on the process of trying to heal and make it through, like just processing that. And that's kind of when I found out about that diagnosis and I found out about like an exact. And so it kind of has been not a whirlwind, but it's definitely been a lot the last couple months.
Sure. Was you finding out about your boyfriend cheating what led you to getting tested, or what was kind of that order of events?
I just wasn't feeling good, and I kind of explained some symptoms to my doctor,
Yeah.
and they suggested I get tested for that because some of the symptoms aligned.
Have you communicated with whoever you contracted it from about it? That communication. Okay.
It sounds really difficult, like you have this identity
Okay. And so then, aside from your family and Gio, is there anyone else in your mentor that you feel like is an example of a positive relationship right now for you?
Gio and my mentor definitely are, but that's all I really need, honestly.
Yeah.
That too.
Right. Okay, thanks. And just a few others. So I know you've talked about how work is kind of stressful in school. Do you feel like that has been like aggravated since you've had this diagnosis, or?
I think I've just kind of become a little bit more numb to things. I'm definitely on edge more often than not.
Right. Okay, and when you're having a very stressful day, how do you tend to manage that?
I try to start my mornings off very calm, so it sets the tone for my day.
Yeah.
I also do yoga a lot. Sometimes when I'm at work and it just gets to the worst, we can get free alcohol. So it's easy to just numb out that way. So I'm not like at risk of losing my job.
Right.
So that's one of the ways when I'm at work, because it is like extremely stressful. We get sexually harassed a lot by a lot of the drunk customers, and that's just kind of the culture that people are brought to be for.
Right.
People get away with it, and if I have the few times I have responded in a way that I thought was fair, I got suspended and reprimanded, things like that. So it's kind of just for the best until I can figure out another thing to do that'll help me pay bills.
Right. So, as a solution to all the problems going on at work, is that something you're actively trying to leave?
Yeah, but I don't want to just leave to go to another place that's the same.
Sure.
So I'm trying to be very intentional about the next move that I make. Because it's like they say, I think it's the devil you know is better than the one you don't know.
Right.
And I believe, like, I know how my job works. I know what I need to do. I know how to make it through. I know, but to have to go in and learn a whole new thing right now is not a good idea, even if it is shitty. So
Change is difficult, and for you, like, change could be a worse option than dealing with what you have. Okay. And do you think there's anything you've thought about with the last boy that you would want to go back, like change, talk to, or are you totally fine with just moving on from that?
I wish I hadn't really entertained him at all.
Yeah.
then I wouldn't be here. Yeah, I mean, I know it's for the best. He's very manipulative and just his stories always make sense. So I think it's just for the best in general for me to move forward, because it's not like he is capable of giving support or anything like that. So what's the point besides upsetting me?
Sure. And I'm sure that like finding out about cheating was really difficult for you. How was that? Something that was it from him you found out, or?
He admitted that he had been seeing somebody before we met, and he told me it was finished. But then things just started not making sense towards the end of it, and people told me some things that didn't make sense. And so when I approached him about it, the previous relationship had never really ended.
Understood. Okay. So obviously there seems to be some now maybe overlying like trust issues and miscommunication with boys. But do you feel like with Zach, that is something that you are also nervous about?
No, his character is just like consistent. I've known him for like 3 or 4 years. So I think it's really more so just like, I think that that's part of the reason why he's understanding, is because he knows almost everything about how that played out. He was there for me when a lot of it did happen.
Right.
And I know that if I were to have trust issues or fear, it would be completely logical, but it's just about being very clear and transparent with him or anybody else that I might entertain when I'm ready about like what happened and where I'm at. So,
right.
You know, I mean, I've tried to be very clear with him about that, and it wasn't too long ago. So I feel like it's a little insensitive for him to even ask me out right now, considering everything.
Right. So he has no idea about, he knows about everything in your life except for pretty much this diagnosis. Okay. Is there anyone else that you really, besides Gio, plan to talk, or do you want to just like any moves besides going back to the doctor, anything you have set up for this?
Not really. I mean, I talked to her for support, and I'm in close contact with my doctor. Excuse me. So I think it's just kind of about waiting and trying to see what the options are, and what's the best one for me.
Right.
Yeah, not really. I'm trying to wrap my brain around all of it.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know last time we kind of talked about how you might have like irrational thoughts and rational thoughts. And so let's say you were to talk to Zach about this and he was not understanding and did not want to be with someone who had this. Could you think about the way she would innately feel and like react toward that?
I think I would be hurt.
Right.
And I probably just wouldn't want to be bothered with him, to be honest. I don't have the space for it currently. Like, I'm still trying to recover from my ex and then this and a job that I hate. I really don't have much room in my life for somebody to add more negativity or stress to it.
Right. Okay. So it seems like right now you have the job, ex, and the situation with Zach, and these are really like big triggers for you. So I guess in your mind, like, you've kind of made up that really the only way it could go that would be positive for you is if he was understanding, because you wouldn't want to be with someone who isn't understanding, right? Okay. So I think that the ultimate goal we're trying to get to is like to have this conversation with Zach, because like that's ultimately going to make the decision for you and him. And then the other thing, so something I would like to do with you is like kind of setting SMART goals. So these are things that are like specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So you kind of mentioned how you don't want to keep like Zach waiting for too long, because that could put your relationship in jeopardy with him and friendship in general. So I think what would be good for us to do is kind of think about the ways that other things external factors are playing into your stress in general, and then how that kind of triggers you. And this might also be playing into the communication that you would have with Zach, or things that prevent you from having this conversation at all. So I think something that could work, and you can let me know how you feel about this, is to maybe have you journal, like through the week, like when are times that you felt triggered, and you could rate them from like 1 to 10, how it made you feel, and maybe if you want to write like a sentence or two about why. Is that something you would be interested in doing?
Sure.
Okay. So I think this is just a way to get you thinking about like in different aspects of your life. So let's just like kind of categorize. So I think we have for you like your job, we'll say. You're in school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we have school, potentially communication with your mom.
We can either go over the questions together, or I can think about whatever.
Times you talk to Zach.
And do you and your mom get to see your so all of these questions.
Let's see. And then the doctor dealing with the diagnosis. And then also just possible trauma from your last relationship. So I think these are just all things that might be on your mind lately, and so these are things that you could think about in ways they like play into your overall stress during the day.
So what do you mean trauma from a previous relationship?
Yeah, sure. So I guess sure, trauma could be a word you don't have to really use, but when I think about like trust issues, communication, and the way you think about communicating now from that, you might like have drawbacks. I think about talking with Zach and having like open conversations that might be affected by the last person that you were with. And so if that comes to your mind, or like you start to think about getting nervous and anxious because of that, then like that could be something you journal as well. Like today I was feeling really anxious. I thought about so-and-so, and like it caused me to feel stressful because X, Y, Z. Okay, and are there any other sort of like goals that you want to achieve that to you would be like success?
I suppose finding some way to reduce the amount of stress in my life.
Yeah.
That'd probably be cool.
Okay, so mitigating any sort of symptoms of anxiety would be good for you. Okay. And how about with like your mood lately? Do you feel any days where you feel like really hopeless, or I guess depressed?
I don't really know what I feel.
Mm-hmm. It's just different day to day. Okay, I totally understand. So just kind of uncertainty of like day to day and mood swings. Okay.
One of the objectives is wanting to talk to your wife and wanting to establish your close relationship, doing the things you used to do. I think.
And do you have any like positive stories, like things this week that went well for you, times that weren't stressful?
Is likely to do that, but in order to get
In the mornings I take my dog for a long walk,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just nice to see him run around and be happy.
That's great to see you, my dog. Your dog brings happiness to you. How often is your communication with Chio, your best friend? Is that like every day?
Almost, yeah.
Every day? Okay. And so I guess in terms of journaling, do you think that what's best for you is, would you like to like check in with me, or have me like check in with you? Like what is the best like self-motivating for you?
What does that look like?
Sure. So sometimes the clients, like I might email them just to see like how's your journal going, because I know that you could be really, really busy with school and work. So sometimes that's just like a reminder. Some people like to just like do it on their own so it doesn't feel like homework.
I'll do it. Let me see how I do this first week.
Sure. Okay, so let's just take it like the first week, see how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, it may be very so, but it's gonna be up to you to decide if that's a time where you're going to do or not. So just, you know,
It might be
I'm not,
hard to
Great.
get back on that day,
talk
but
about
if you feel like that
There's
day
any-
you did
oh.
maybe theory or
help the rest of the day.
If that's something that's a fit, it was kind of later, it was like around 6, so.
And do you have like a time that you think like would be your maximum time that you could really wait to talk to Zach about this?
Yeah, I guess.
I haven't put that limit on myself.
Sure.
It's not like I'm not doing anything about it. I'm here to talk to you about it,
Yeah.
so I can do it for him, really, and for me. I suppose within a month, but I care about him a lot. I'm just curious about my hesitation.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
and that's your decision to make.
Okay, and so before we end, I guess I just want to ask, like, how are you feeling now? Do you feel like after you talk about this, you're feeling better? I was talking about it maybe making you more confused.
Yeah.
But it also,
well,
interesting that you say that.
I'm glad that you picked up on me mentioning the diagnosis last time. I was kind of frustrated about that last time.
Yeah, of course.
Is when our minds start racing, and that poses to
Think that what we can tell them things the next time that they come up.
and also that, so
For the
usually during
most part, at least I'm like not worse.
Mm-hmm.
you engage, and then that pose could be like.
But I feel really detached from my emotions for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's not bad.
Yeah.
So I would say that. But ever since I got the news, I just haven't really been, I don't know.
So in tune with your feelings.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that's something we'll really work on, and I really feel hopeful that like the more we talk about this and we're able to like be in tune with the way you're feeling and why you're feeling about that, and actually getting to the cause, that we'll be able to like figure this out together. Mm-hmm.
Anything else that's come up this week that you'd like to discuss? Or any potential mistakes regarding your relationship with your wife?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Victoria, and we'll plan to schedule something for like the next week and a half.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Sometime from